I've been asked to say a few words, and I've heard that he's died. It was in the paper, oddly enough. I don't know why it was in the paper. The paper doesn't print things like that. It seems to me that there must be a grandmother somewhere having her, or great-grandmother having her 100th birthday, and blow a picture of her blowing out the candle. And that's not in the paper because his article's in the paper about him dying. It seems like there's a horse that swam clear across a lake, and there's no picture of the horse or that story. There's a dog that got home, and after being lost 1,000 miles away, and it suddenly came home 3 months later. And that story's not in the paper because his story's in the paper. And I'm getting suspicious about why his story's in the paper. It doesn't go into the details of how he died, but I've got my vision of how he died, having known him for many years. We always called him Malcolm. We always called him Malcolm. Well, that's another story. But we always called him Malcolm, and Malcolm had certain propensities, and I have a vision of how he died. He, you know those cheesy little motels that they rent by the hour down by the airport? I have this vision of him being asphyxiated by some tranny in a nun's outfit. That's kind of my idea of how he'd like to go. Whether it's actually what happened or not, I don't know, but I could spread the rumor, and rumor becomes fact easily enough in this continent, so I thought that would be an interesting story. We called him Malcolm because he got started in the performing arts early, back in the late 50s, early 60s, before hippies ruined everything. He, one of his mother's boyfriends, I guess you would say, had an act on the rapidly dying vaudeville burlesque stage. He was honoring, doing a tribute performance, as we would say now, of Milton Berle. Milton Berle was on television in the late 50s. He had an act in which he dressed up like a lady, and at some point during the act, someone would run, he would yell, "Talcum, Malcolm!" and Malcolm would run out and hit him with this big puff ball thing, and there'd be a cloud of talcum in the air, and the face would be all white, you know, and that was a big joke. When people just would roar with laughter. And so Malcolm used to work with what he referred to as his uncle on stage there before Mona Lott came out. You don't see women of body types like Mona Lott much anymore on the stage. In fact, you don't see him on the stage at all any longer. But anyway, that was how he came to be known as Malcolm, because he'd get the wax, and he'd get the hits, and he'd take the pratfalls and so forth for his uncle. Now, in those days, you had a performance situation in which you could perfect your art, and so you were on 3 to 5 times a night for your little performance, and so you could try it a little faster, a little slower. You could pause a bit. You could think about how this ought to be handled. Maybe you get a little more audience response. Maybe milk another laugh out of it if you kind of missed, or if you pretended to hit him and you didn't, or whatever. And so that kind of stuff is now gone. And I noticed in the paper, reading it, that he's considered a paragon, one of the top avant-garde performers. And I got to thinking about calling him avant-garde. When the hell was the last time avant-garde made any sense whatsoever? I mean, after all, what we're doing today, in this century, isn't avant-garde. And what was avant-garde kind of died after the Bauhaus someplace. I mean, maybe de Kooning or Franz Klein or some Kerouac or somebody might be considered avant-garde, but what the hell would avant-garde be today? He was a master of his craft, I'll grant him that. But he had a knack. He had a knack for making something out of nothing, or maybe he was making nothing out of something. Or maybe he was starting with nothing and making nothing. It's kind of hard to gauge that in today's environment, because it's a little difficult to know how some of this plays out. Particularly now that he's dead, who's going to remember, aside from me? And I got to brooding about, where in the hell's the justice in all this? I mean, after all, he dies, and he gets a big thing in the paper, damn near half a page. And I got to thinking about, if I were to die, you know, there probably wouldn't be a sentence in the paper. And I also got to think about, well, where is the justice that he gets to die? Now, he doesn't have to dream up goofy shit, and I'm stuck here, going on and on, having to dream up more and more stuff.